day 6, dive 1. We are in Koh Bon for the morning dive. That's a beautiful sight. Looking forward to this one. This is our schedule for today.
I hope you're feeling nice and refreshed. For dive 9 of the trip, or for the first dive today, we've made it to the island of Koh Bon, which is just behind us here. And then underwater, it's partly wall dive and a reef dive. So the wall, the bridge actually stretches out 35-40 meters underwater this way. And there's reef and wall, so you get a mixture of both. As you can see from my lovely drawing, we've got 6 snakes. These guys over here. You saw one yesterday? Hopefully you'll see more. Yeah. Ah. Yeah. So there's loads of snakes around here. If you do see the sea snakes, don't harm them. Yeah. They do bite if you. Yes. Cool. Next, if you're very, very lucky or bleeding, you might find the white-tailed sharks. Yeah? They're just waking up right now, so if we're lucky, we might see them swimming.
enjoyed that first dive. Everything came together from the phase, the life, the water temperature, and just being really chilled. So dive 1, complete success. Looking forward to dive 2 on day 6 in Koh Bon. Got a nice clip, sleeping, relaxing, having a brew, blue sky, blue sea. That's our destination later, Similan Islands, Island 8. She just wants to show off. Come on. I can check it out in one of these.
First, now we're going to talk a little bit about the second dive of the day, or the 10th dive of the trip. Okay? So, on this dive, the maximum depth is going to be 28 meters, or shallower than your last dive, and the maximum time is going to be 50 minutes. So on this dive, we might have a little bit more current than the last dive. So make sure that you stay at the same depth as your dive guide, and make sure as well that if they ask you to come over to the wall, maybe, come over to the wall. Stay out of the current, okay? So on this dive, we're gonna head in this direction over here. The current's coming from this direction, so it splits that way, and we're gonna go in this direction. Okay? Maybe have a look in the sand every now and then, and you might see a red fire goby. Okay? Red fire gobies, along with all the other gobies, have a symbiotic relationship with the shrimp. So, some people think that the shrimp digs out the hole, right? And in return for giving a house to the goby provides protection for the shrimp. However, some people also think that it's a parasitic relationship that they've got rather than a symbiotic one, and that the goby is actually holding the shrimp hostage. It's a bit more sinister. Then, as well, on the dive, you might see Titan triggerfish. Okay, these can be aggressive. However, maybe when you're diving, you see a triggerfish munching on a bit of coral, right? If it's occupied, you can usually get pretty close to them without them getting aggressive. So, the order hasn't changed, so first will be Carlos. You guys have any questions about the next dive?
No.
Is there anything you want to add? Okay, let's go diving!
See you.
Dive 2, day 6. We're up to the Similan Islands. So, last dive, my ears were all over the place. Like, sounded like a rusty door opening, squeaking, cracking, banging. I'm sure it'll be okay for the next dive. Mad currents there on the last one. Down currents, up currents, side currents, currents to the left, currents to the right. Sounds like a song. Did see a lot of stuff. Viz was still pretty awesome. Still loads and loads of glass fish. Saw a cheeky little eel hiding in the rocks. Got a nice shot of that. Yeah, chill dive again. Diving with a really nice relaxed group, so no one's banging into each other or anything, so it's really nice. The other group that we passed saw an octopus, which we kind of like skirted round them, so I didn't go in to take a look, but apparently there was an octopus. Yeah, so one more dive today, and then tonight it's barbecue and mocktail hour. Exciting stuff, so let's get a little bit of dinner, a bit of sunbathing, let's get a hot chocolate down me, and see what the day has, see what happens for the day. Maybe some internet and a game of chess.
Jump on this side, but at the moment the current is really strong pushing against this side. Alright? So what we're actually going to do now is drop here. We're going to drop here and then we're going to get sheltered from all of these rocks. So we're going to see how far we can get. Then what we're going to do is turn around and then head back to the island over here. The island here is called island number 9. Over there is island number 8, and then 7, 6, 5, 4 goes all the way down. You guys heard all the briefings before? Yes, boring. Boring briefings, alright? We're going to have to do a fun one this time. So, this is how this briefing's going to go. I'm going to describe a fish very badly. You're going to have to think of what the fish is actually called, alright? So this is how it's going to go. Let's start with an easy one. What type of eel would you use to wrap a present?
Ribbon.
Well done, ribbon eel, 1 point. All right. So have a look out for the ribbon eels on this dive site. All right, there are a few on the mountain chain here. Last time I was here, see if we can find some of them for this dive, ribbon eels. All right, let's have a look. I'll save that one for later. What else we got? What else we got? What else we got? We have this one. So, if you guys work in a metal factory and you have to clean the floor, what are you?
Cheap labour.
Cheap labour, correct, but no. Anyone got? I gave you hints. Cleaning the floor and metal factory. Anyone? All right, then you are a copper sweeper. Right, this is a copper sweeper right here. All right, the Germans call this fish axe fish because it looks like an axe. Because Germans are cooler than us. All right, so yes, have a look. You'll find these copper sweepers in big schools underneath the rocks, hiding. So you'll see. You have to look underneath the rocks and see if you can find the copper sweepers. All right. Oh, I lost it now. It's gone forever. All right, we'll go to the other one. So, this is a funny one. What are these? Almost. What type of sweet lips? They are Oriental sweet lips. There we go. Have a look for the Oriental sweet lips down there. But don't just look for the older ones. You have to look for the baby ones as well. They look like Nemos. Like they look like a baby shark basically, and they swim like this. You'll find them in the cracks and crevices underneath the rocks. All right. See if you can find.
time. So dive 3 done, day 6, last dive of the day. Chill out, barbecuing out tonight. So looking forward to a few beers, barbecue. Last dive was awesome, massive big boulders. He just made you feel like tiny compared to all these massive boulders we were diving around. Ribbon eels, mating triggerfish. There was a triggerfish nest down there, so there was a bit of a nasty bugger down there chasing people off. Yeah, cool dive. Last day tomorrow, one of the other Similan islands, so we got I think 2 dives tomorrow, and then heading back to the port, and then scuba diving is over for this year. Okay. Deep fried banana. Whoa! Going! Guilty pleasure. We might be going to the beach. Walking up that rock up there. So this is Similan Island number 8 with the iconic rock behind. You can see on every photographs. The boat drops off, so I'm just going to have a little walk on the beach. Enjoy. Scampering off. Let's zoom into it. Lots of redbird on them. What's beyond there? The tree monitor lizard. Shark here. Birds sort of flying around. By the tree. What about the buttress root? It's all that, so you can freeze it. More information about what you can see here.